New footage shows George Floyd pleading with officers. A court has been shown new police bodycam footage of George Floyd pleading with officers during his arrest, saying, "I'm not a bad guy." The video comes as the murder trial of ex-officer Derek Chauvin continues for a third day. In it, Mr. Floyd is seen begging for police not to harm him. The footage also shows Mr. Chauvin with his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes. Mr. Floyd's 2020 death sparked global protests over policing and racism. Mr. Chauvin, 45, denies charges of murder and manslaughter. Defense lawyers have indicated they will argue that 46-year-old Mr. Floyd died of an overdose and poor health, and the force used was reasonable. Observers of the trial say footage shown of Mr. Floyd's actions before and during the arrest may be an attempt by prosecutors to deal with the allegation that drugs played a part in his death. What does the bodycam film show? The court has been shown footage from the body cameras belonging to officers Thomas Lane, J. Alexander Kung and Tu Thao. Mr. Chauvin's camera fell to the ground as the arrest unfolded and so did not give a visual recording of the event. In Mr. Lane's footage, Mr. Floyd is seen being confronted by police. He begs them, "Please don't shoot me. I just lost my mom." Mr. Floyd is handcuffed and continues to plead with officers Lane and Kung, saying he is not resisting them and will do anything you tell me to. A scuffle occurs when police try to get Mr. Floyd into a vehicle, and he starts crying and resisting while saying he is claustrophobic and has anxiety. Mr. Chauvin and his partner Mr. Thao arrive as the arrest goes on. As the police officers drag him out of the car and restrain him on the ground, Mr. Floyd can be heard calling for his mother and telling his family members he loves them. Bystanders begin to shout at officers to check Mr. Floyd's pulse and stop restraining him. What did witnesses say on Wednesday? Shop employee Christopher Martin, 19, told the court he briefly interacted with Mr. Floyd as a customer inside Cup Foods shortly before his arrest. He said Mr. Floyd appeared to be high, because he struggled to respond to a simple question, but he was lucid enough to able to hold a conversation. He described Mr. Floyd as friendly and approachable. In the shop's surveillance video, Mr. Floyd can be seen laughing, talking to people, and walking around. Mr. Martin told the jury he had sold Mr. Floyd a packet of cigarettes, and received a counterfeit note as payment. Mr. Martin described knowing the bill was fake by its color and texture, but added that Mr. Floyd didn't seem to know it was a fake note. He said he had considered letting the shop deduct it from his wages instead of confronting Mr. Floyd, but then decided to tell his manager. Another employee went on to call the police. Mr. Martin, who witnessed the arrest, said he felt disbelief and guilt, because if I'd have just not taken the bill, this could have been avoided. Charles McMillan, 61, was another witness who took the stand on Wednesday. Based on CCTV footage, Mr. McMillan appears to have been the first bystander on the scene of Mr. Floyd's arrest. He told the court he engaged in conversation with Mr. Floyd, urging him to get into the police car. Mr. McMillan said he remembers feeling helpless, seeing the incident unfold. He can be heard on video telling Mr. Chauvin, "Your knee on his neck. That's wrong, man." As the court was shown footage of the arrest, Mr. McMillan began to sob, and the judge called for a brief recess. What else has happened in the trial so far? In opening statements on Monday, prosecutor Jerry Blackwell told the jury that Mr. Chauvin had betrayed his badge by kneeling on Mr. Floyd's neck and using excessive and unreasonable force to detain him. Meanwhile, Mr. Chauvin's lawyer Eric Nelson said the case was about the evidence, not about a political or social cause. He said Mr. Floyd had ingested drugs at the time of his arrest, in an effort to conceal them from the police, and suggested this had contributed to his death. 4 young witnesses took to the stand on Tuesday. Darnella, the teenager whose film of Mr. Floyd's death sparked global protests, said she stays up apologizing to him for not doing more. She told the court she had started filming on her phone because she saw a man terrified, begging for his life. It wasn't right, he was in pain, she said. One witness, Donald Williams II, who is trained in mixed martial arts, was questioned for more than an hour by the prosecution and defense on Monday and again on Tuesday. He told the court Mr. Chauvin had used a dangerous technique called a blood choke, and was moving his knee back and forth to increase the pressure on Mr. Floyd's back and neck. He rejected defense suggestions that he and other bystanders' interactions with police had been threatening to the officers there.